Country Blokes chewing the fat.
Listen.
I've been hearing a lot lately about men don't talk, but in my experience, men do talk, just people aren't listening. So it's going to be me and a group of blokes discussing our struggles and victories through life. Warning, there may be some bad language, so apologies to all the mums, especially my own. Let's get going.
This is the Black Country Blokes chewing the fat about everything is mental health, disability, and life in general. Here with me, Kev Dillon, and my partner in crime, as always, Lee Cadman. And we're joined today by the very talented Sam from Samantics. But before we go into Sam's story and his tour dates and all the fantastic work he does, and I've seen this bloke in the flesh, and he is amazing. We're going to talk about our gratitude list, because I always believe that we've got to be grateful for something. And as always, I'm very grateful for the weekend I've had. I had a lovely family weekend. We went to... My daughter had a Christmas present. She got to be a zookeeper for the day. So she got to see lemurs and meerkats and hairy armadillos. And it was just a great family day. What are you grateful for, bruv?
You know what? We often complain, don't we, about waiting lists and time it takes to get into the doctors. But I've had to book 2 appointments in the last week. Both times I've got in the same day with no hassle at all. And even better than that, Kev, today I was running late. So I'll phone them up and say, look, I've stuck in traffic. I'm not sure if I'm going to make it on time. And they told me, don't worry about it. We'll move someone else forward to get you, to make sure you get your appointment. So yes, I'm just grateful for the work of the doctors. 3 Villages medical practice.
Brilliant. And Sam, what are you grateful for, brother?
I have to say, in a similar way, I am grateful that this weekend it was my mum's birthday and my wife's birthday, and we had a little party in the garden. And it rained and it rained and it rained, but we had the best time and weren't put off by that at all. So it was just nice. I love family. So getting all together was really, really great fun.
We often say that. I mean, all 3 of us, by the sense of it, we're very grateful and very lucky that we've got family. Because, you know, it's that those people who are there for you when it's good, but foremost are there for you when it's bad. But Sam, tell us a little bit about yourself and Samantics.
Well, thank you very much for having me on, by the way. I'm kind of a one-man poetry band. I've never been able to describe myself. I find it really, really difficult. But I use loop pedals and various instruments to make backing tracks, and then kind of do spoken word rap poetry. Again, not the best description of myself, but I'm massively passionate about words and writing, and that is kind of something that I'm sure we'll talk about. Is something that has completely changed my course and helped keep me alive. As dramatic as that may sound, it's entirely true. And I've always been a huge fan of words and poetry. And then about 10 years ago, I introduced like musical element, and it's just kind of grown and grown and grown. And I've recently kind of quit my proper full-time, like not full-time, for proper adult job, and I'm now kind of fully afloat on music, which is amazing to think that that's ever a possibility.
I mean, because when I listened to you at Katie's, it was fantastic. And anyone who's listening to this countrywide, you got to go and see the Samantics, because everyone knows I love my hip hop, but it was funny. He talks a lot about mental health, and I met Sam afterwards and went and bought his CDs, and I said, we've got to get you on the podcast. So before we talk about mental health, were you into poetry? Is that how you found your love of the written word, or was it through hip hop?
So yeah, I mean, I still remember to this day getting the first Slim Shady LP, and then having to take it back because my mum heard it. But actually, what I did, so I had got the clean version, and my mum heard it, and I had to take it back, and we actually had a bit of an argument about it. I was quite young, probably about 11 at the time, and so I took it back, and then secretly I just bought the explicit version instead. And it took me a while to tell her, but so I've kind of, that was my first real foray into kind of hip hop. But yeah, my love for poetry, it was for writing stuff. I had just a little book that I'd kind of keep very, very secret, wouldn't really share it that much at all. And it started off kind of silly poems and stuff like that. But then I realized I would start to write about how I would feel. And and kept it completely hidden from the world, because it's a very vulnerable place. That notebook was very vulnerable, said a lot about myself that I didn't think people would appreciate hearing, or might put them off me or something like that. I had so many thoughts about the negative side of what people might think. And then it was only through eventually applying that to music, through the help of my brother, that I realized that actually these words that I'd written could be done to music, and it could be hip hop. And then kind of the more confidence I got with doing music and writing, the more able I felt to start writing about the more serious subjects. And it was then that, as I said before, kind of that was a real turning point for me, realizing that I had this platform where I was able to, and still am able to, be brutally honest about things, and it to be okay to say it. Like, and maybe it's hidden because it's hidden like behind a bit of a rhythm and like a cheeky like reggae bit of ukulele or something like that, but there was something about performing and saying these things in a song that made it easier for me to then just say it in a conversation. And it's only through time and performing lots that I'm now able to talk very openly about mental health. And
because when you're singing and talking, even like you're very funny, naturally funny, charismatic chap, but like in between your things, there is a sense of vulnerability when you're talking about it, and it's very emotional.
It's, yeah, I don't really know how to be kind of any other way. When I first started, the bit in between songs, I hated it. I was terrified, because that when you've got a song and you kind of, this is where it starts, don't forget the words, get to the end, and you kind of done. And that's kind of, there's a pattern to that. But then talking in between songs, because there wasn't any structure to it or any part of it, I found it really difficult for a long time, until I started to get comfortable again about just being open. And it's almost a stream of kind of consciousness, and I quite often have to tell myself just to shut up down the microphone, because I waffle on about the weirdest things, but it also it gives me a chance to introduce the songs properly and explain kind of where they've come from, and how it got to kind of maybe a difficult situation that turned into a song or something like that. And as you said, it's kind of, I like to have some light-hearted elements. So I would say 50% of my songs are focused on mental health, and 50% of my songs are focused on maybe silly things, or like a typical hip hop, kind of aggressive hip hop, but from just this weird 6'4" teacher that isn't that aggressive whatsoever. Or to the time when somebody called me a banjo playing Eminem wannabe, which then got to be one of my favorite songs to play. So it's channeling every emotion. So somebody was really, really angry at me, and they wrote, "You're a joke, you're a banjo playing Eminem wannabe," and it was the best thing I've ever heard. And I could have kind of responded and been annoyed or anything like that, but I just replied with a smile, and I went home and I wrote that song. And it's one of my favorite songs to play. And so out of what could have been anger, I turned it into something a lot more beneficial for myself.
And your partner's in a band as well, isn't she?
Yes. So Hannah, my wife, is in a band called Sound of the Sirens, and we actually met through me supporting them at a gig in Exeter. I think I'll be allowed to tell this story. I awkwardly went to give her a hug, and I actually accidentally poked her in the boob, and I really panicked.
That's what we meant.
Well, I'll see if the next bit happened as well, because when I did, it's like, oh God, I'm so sorry, I poked you in the boob. And then she turned around to me and just went, it's fine, it's all padding. And at that point I was like, oh my God, I love her, she's amazing. And then we just, after that, we kind of just got to know each other for a few months, and then now we're married with a tiny ball of chaos who's just fallen asleep, which is great, because I thought I might be a bit late on, but he's now stopped moving. So it's music. I'm very, very grateful to music, because not only has it given me an opportunity to talk about things and have a job and like a career almost out of it, but it's let me meet my wife, like the greatest person I've ever met. And it's all through music, and some of the best friends I've got have been met through music. So I'm very, very appreciative and lucky to have it.
Did I hear when you said 604 teacher? Are you a teacher by trade?
So that's I was a primary school teacher for many years, and then when I moved, and I absolutely loved it. And again, I was trying to infuse children's love for poetry through hip hop. So there was a song that I'd written. It was like a hip hop number. It was all I produced a version of it with like the Mario theme tune, but I turned it into like a hip hop backing track. And then I wrote about a poem, a rap, all about different poetry types, so haikus and couplets, and then got the kids to learn that. And so then they would, through learning the rap to the beat, they were then able to tell me, oh, a haiku's got this many syllables and that sort of thing. But yeah, so for many years I was a primary school teacher, and then I started to do supply, and it wasn't until I started to do supply teaching in Devon that I finally had a bit of time, because I was able to leave the job at 3:30 or 4 o'clock, and I didn't have to think about the next day. Whereas when I was a full-time teacher, it was a 24-hour job. Like I loved it from 8:45 when the kids walked through the door till 3:30. It was the best job I could have ever had. But it didn't stop when the kids left. It got way more difficult. It got so much planning and preparation and assessments. And I'm recently officially diagnosed with ADHD. And so admin and that sort of thing is not my strength. And it really, really drags me down. And I would wake up in the middle of the night hearing my name being called out, like my teacher name, Mr. Walker. And so it was, for me, it was a 24-hour job. And it slowly really took its toll, and I ended up being off work multiple times with quite severe mental health issues, and it was too much for me to handle. And so doing supply teaching meant I was able to step away a bit more and have time for myself in the evenings. And then I realized I could start writing again, and then I got a loop pedal, and everything changed when I got a loop pedal for Christmas off my mum, bless her, big up Maggie. And then I started Samantics, and it's been great since.
Will you explain, before we go into the teaching, but will you explain what a loop pedal is?
Yeah, of course. What I'll just very quickly explain before, if it's okay, is like my first understanding that what I was writing down could be hip hop was at a Christmas do with my family. So I'm the youngest of 3 boys, and my brother Nick creates and makes loads of like hip hop instrumentals, and so he was playing us some of those, and so we started practicing what my lyrics were. I'd found them on MySpace, that I downloaded them that day and kind of tried it all in the front room, and it worked. So we then decided to do a little kind of a hip hop duo basically together, where he would spend months and months and months creating a backing track and going into it with such incredible detail, stuff that I wouldn't notice, but he was making this, and then I would write the lyrics, and then we'd join forces. And although both of us had put so much time into it, and especially him putting like months and months of effort, when it came to playing gig, he would press play on a laptop because there wasn't much he could do live. And so it kind of felt a little bit like karaoke, and there wasn't any wiggle room for it to be different. There wasn't any change. The tempo was always exactly the same. So it kind of was quite regimented. And so then I got a loop pedal, which completely changed everything. So with a loop pedal, I have a certain number of channels. On the one I use now, I've got 5 separate channels. And with that, I will start with using either my mouth for beatboxing or some drums through a keyboard, and I'll make quite a short and simple rhythm, usually about 85 beats per minute, hip hoppy speed, and then that will just keep playing for me, so I don't have to think about that. And then I will add a bit of ukulele or some bass or some keyboard or kind of maybe harmonica, and then that will keep looping. And so I can have then 5 channels of different instruments kind of looping all at the same time. I can stop at one point, I could stop the drums and just have like the ukulele playing, and then I can have what I do for myself, which a lot of people use loop pedals in very, very different ways. I'm about to go on tour with another loop pedal artist who plays incredibly well, but very, very differently to me. I feel like I use it quite basically, so I will record myself singing the choruses at the beginning of the song, So it would be like, I'm a banjo playing Eminem Wanna Be, and then I will probably record myself 2 or 3 times, get a different harmony in there. And then what that means for me is that when it comes round to the chorus, because quite often I'm exhausted by the time a verse is finished because there's so many words to think of and to remember, I can press play on this thing I've just recorded a minute before. But then that gives me a chance to get my breath back and kind of be part of, like, just be. I can sing along with it as well, but it's what it really does, and what it really did for me as Samantics was it brought it back to being live. Because if I make a mistake, that mistake is going to come round every like 12 seconds, and it will be there, and every time it will be different. And if I start a song and do a bit of beatboxing, if I then played that same song the next day at a different gig, if I did it a few beats per minute faster or slower, it will completely change the outcome of the song, because the words will be delivered faster or slower, and the ukulele will be played differently. And for me and my very short attention span, that is exactly what I need it to be, because it's not regimented. And sometimes I just change the song completely. I slow it down massively. And I think that just gives me the freedom to be a little bit more loose with what I do. And hopefully it makes it interesting for people that come and watch me more than once. I try not to do the same thing. Sorry,
I remember like the Ed Sheeran used to do it famously when he used to play like Glastonbury when he first started.
Yes.
And a man I heard years ago, Joe Driscoll. I used to love Joe Driscoll. I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
Yes, I have heard Joe Driscoll. He doesn't do anything anymore, does he? Is that?
I heard him play, 15 years ago, before I was with my wife, and I bought his first CD, and I loved it because I saw him on one of the independent channels, and I thought, wow, this guy, hip hop, and I thought that's how English hip hop was going to take off, but it ended up going down like drill and grime. But yeah. I love that because it was so completely different to the Americans. I thought it was
absolutely
fantastic.
Yeah. No, Joe Driscoll is really, really good, and it was Ed Sheeran that I first saw using a loop pedal. Like, it was before he was famous. Kind of just saw somebody was like, "I'll check this guy out," and I was like, and I thought he was really good. At the time, I thought it was a really good song that he'd done. But what really got me was like, "What's that at his feet? Like, that is cool." And that was kind of my first introduction to what something could happen, like what I could do, or maybe I could. I don't want to say I followed Ed Sheeran, because nobody wants to say that.
You picked his brain and you've made your own thing, haven't you? And that's what hip hop is. You know,
it's what music is, isn't it? Really,
we built on the back of like the Sugar Hill Gang, then Run DMC, then LL Cool J, then KRS-One, and it's and then all the way up to like nowadays. And what, in my opinion, the reason why I fell in love with hip hop, yes, the beat, but when it's rap, rhythm, and poetry. And I used to write poetry, and when I was at school, I'm very illiterate, and they try and get me to read The Taming of the Shrew, and I go, I can barely read English, never mind Elizabethan English. But if you got me reading KRS-One or Tupac or DMX or Muhammad Ali quotes, I'd have been engaged with the written word.
Yeah, it's like, I think it's a massive part of kind of the education system as well, because not everybody learns in the same way. And I think that's what I was touching on before, is trying to infuse a bunch of kids into, they would say, "Oh, poetry's boring," and I'd be like, but it's not, because listen, it is rhythm and poetry. That is rap, and it worked. But it turns out that's not what they wanted me to do as a teacher. So,
and we always say that whether you're reading a comic book or whether you're reading I don't know, The Taming of the Shrew, you're reading.
Absolutely.
And putting words together, and that knowledge is going into your brain. That's the art of getting someone to read, isn't it? And I have friends, like I run a boxing club, we're upstairs at the moment. We have teachers, and they love teaching, but the problem is they have to follow the curriculum and they have to follow Ofsted, and it's taken away the love of being a teacher.
Absolutely. It's become a much more regimented kind of, you have to make this many sub-levels of progress in English and maths, and the creative subjects, music, art, has taken, it was getting shorter and shorter times on a Friday afternoon. You get an hour of art or something like that. And actually some people will, and as you said, like creating things like comic books, you'd still be writing, you'd still be using other skills, but it has become more and more about maths and English, two sub levels of progress, and that's it.
What I find is intelligence in this country is measured by how much you can regurgitate other clever people. And I'm thinking, well, a parrot doesn't mean it's clever. I mean, I find someone intelligent when they can formulate their own ideas, or if they can create something from nothing. To me, I look at someone, whether they're building a swing or writing a symphony or whatever, setting up a fitness program, I go, well, you're a clever dude.
Yeah.
But someone who could just go, well, in paragraph 57, I'm thinking, well, you're just copying someone. You haven't. Yeah. You're not clever. You've got a good memory.
Exactly that. And I think cleverness is often based, hopefully less so and less so, but based on what you remember. I am an absolute liability if I'm on your team in a pub quiz. I am the worst person to have on your team. But, you know, that's luckily how I don't. I mean, I think I have always classed myself as not very bright. But I've got passions of other things, and I don't think that makes me brighter. I just think
brightness shines differently with different people, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's not, I'm not bright. I'm not very good at maths.
Yeah.
I'm not, but that doesn't stop me from being bright. And I've seen you perform, Sam, and it is. I'm not just saying it's here. This is why I want to get you on. It was one of them moments, and my friends, Si, Laura, Booty, and Nat, they said, like, come and watch this guy, Kev's right up your alley. And I sat there, and he just made the crowd feel comfortable. And then boom, and then you're funny. And then we'll get you to talk about some of your songs in a bit. And I sat there really captured to your words and thinking, this guy has been through painful situations. And sometimes you're talking from pain. Sometimes you turn pain into light and comedy. And that's a gift.
And that's how sometimes you deal with pain, isn't it? You use comedy.
Absolutely, yeah. Turning it in a different direction, like putting some light onto a dark situation. It's why sometimes people tell dark jokes, because it's their form of dealing with it or something like that. But
I find that, don't you find, in the minute with the country and the world, where we find it, am I allowed to laugh at this? And you're thinking, laughter's the greatest gift of all. You know, when you're sat there, whether you find who's been framed funny and you're seeing a little old lady fall over, or whether you're finding double entendres or Monty Python, or if it's funny, we're all laughing, as long as we're not fighting, you know.
Yeah.
Let's enjoy the moment. And we all find different things funny, but that's okay. That's the beauty of comedy. Comedy is, you know, what's the word? We're not all the same. I can't think. Subjective.
Yeah. And I think I always used to say, like, if you used to tell a joke at school or something like that, and you'd laugh at your own joke, you get they'd be like, oh, you laugh at your own jokes. And I remember being kind of made to feel like that wasn't an okay thing to do. And then it's got to a particular age. And I thought to myself, if anybody is able to make themselves laugh, then do it all day. Because as you said, there's literally, I think it is one of the best human emotions, like, is laughter. It is so, or human expressions, because it's just pure joy. Like, I'm not sure tickling laughter is the same sort of joy, because I fritter between laughing and then wanting to, like, punch somebody in the face because I don't get tickled very well. But and so now, like, I think I've just very recently written a new song called Dad Pun Comedy, which is all about being now able to tell dad jokes. Now I'm a dad.
Great, isn't it?
And like, that's one of the things I'm enjoying the most, is being able to tell terrible jokes. And at the end, it kind of turns it towards Sully, that's my son, saying, don't let anybody tell you that you're not allowed to laugh at your own jokes. If you can laugh at something, be like, just find joy where you can. And yeah, like, it is definitely, I think we're definitely at a time now in 2024 when you very much have to watch everything that you say and do, and what you laugh at and what you find funny. And because there's quite a strong culture of wanting to cancel stuff, and so it's a difficult path to tread.
I watched Jimmy Carr the other day on one of the social medias, and he said, the joke that cancelled me, I've already said it. He says, someone will find this joke I said 10 years ago or last week, they'll drag into something, and that will be what gets me banned. It won't be something I say now. And I thought, That's how people are at the moment. They'll find a Facebook post that you've written, you know, and I don't envy our children's age in 20 years, 30 years, where their mummies and daddies have taken photos of them and they've done stuff as saft children, they've done things as silly teenagers. And we've got to realise that I acted as a child when I was a child. I acted as a teenager when I was a teenager. I acted as at 20 when I was 20. And I made mistakes along the way, but
You
that's
know
what's
what, though,
made me.
Kev? That I'm more concerned that he doesn't feel like he can tell that joke now, because it's a joke.
Mm.
And if people aren't viewing it that way, well, don't listen to him.
Mm.
You know, if he doesn't feel comfortable telling a joke that he'd have told 10 years ago now, you know, 10 years is not that long ago.
No, he's saying it's
I
not.
know what he's saying, but what I'm saying is if he doesn't feel comfortable, he's saying that will get him.
He's saying that will be the thing that got him cancelled.
Yeah.
Not him saying the same joke.
That's what I'm
A joke
saying,
he's
though, but
already
he won't say that joke now because he knows it'll get him cancelled.
Mm.
You know, so to me, you should be open, and if it's a joke, it's a joke.
But that's the nature of the beast at the moment, isn't it?
It's like I don't know if either of you have heard the new Slim Shady album, the new Eminem album, The Death of Slim Shady, and it is all about it's all about him cancelling himself and being cancelled, and so it's really clever. If you listen to it start to finish, I think already people have taken the most offensive song and been like, "This is not okay. This is not okay." But then if you listen to it, it is literally him battling Slim Shady. It's Marshall Mathers and Slim Shady battling each other, and one of them being like, "You're going too far," and then Slim Shady being like, "Well, I've got you as big as you are." So it's a clever listen, but it is all about being cancelled and trying to cancel himself.
Because I like to well, mate, I thought that was the Eminem I fell in love with, Slim Shady, Marshall Mathers, and then, in my opinion, he's always been a good rapper, but it hasn't been my flavour of hip hop. But when I heard that Abracadabra Houdini, I thought, yes, this is my cup of tea.
Yeah, no, I think I was a similar one. The first two albums, absolutely loved them. Such a contrast between the two as well, because one's kind of like quirky, naughty, and the other one is honest and angry.
Yeah.
And then I kind of got lost along the way with it. Really, it didn't go down, like I just stopped listening. And then when he came back, he had quite a few issues. I might be wrong here, but I think he had lots of issues with addiction, and kind of went off the rails a bit, as far as I'm aware. And then wrote the album Recovery, and then that kind of brought back him to I heard this album and I thought it was absolutely incredible. And then and a similar thing drifted off again. But this album, I think, has been really, really strong, and it's a good return to kind of what he was famous for. But also, he's not just trying to do the thing he's done 20 years ago. He's adding his own self, the impact that it's had on him, and the effect it's had on him. All of this change, all of this cancellation towards him, etc.
Talking about like Eminem's problems, are you open to talk about like some of your own problems? Because I know you refer to them in your songs, but it's easier to talk about them on stage than being vulnerable, being Sam, isn't it? But I think that's where the power comes from.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because it has been something that I've learned to do, and I've only been able to learn to talk about it openly through doing songs, because I'm actually realizing, well, anything I'm saying now, you could probably find that conversation that I've had in a song somewhere. I've already said it. And saying it at a gig and on a stage, I find that okay, because it's almost, unless there's somebody kind of filming the whole thing, or, you know, there's lots of people can film and stuff like that, but it just feels like I'll have this gig, I'll say these things, and then they go. Then that won't happen again. And the next day I'll probably tell a similar story, but I might tell it in a different way. And so I think I have not really ever done a proper like podcast before. And so in my head, I'm like, well, if you say that, then that's on the internet forever, sort of thing. But I'm okay with it. It's just something I had to think about. It's like, oh, we've not done a podcast before, but I'm more than happy to talk about mental health and my own battles, journey, my struggles and successes at times.
It is so, like, because when I first started doing this, and when you get on the karaoke and you're making yourself to be a foolish, I'm up there singing Dolly Parton or doing Vanilla Ice or whatever. You're there to be a spectacle, to be laughed at, to be enjoyed. But when you show yourself all warts and all and show that vulnerability, it's frightening. And when I first did, I thought, oh my God, what people are going to say? But it was the opposite. Everyone's going, fair play, mate. And you suffer with panic attacks or you've had depression. And they go, I never realised, but I do too. And it opened that door for conversation.
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest things for myself that I've discovered is in openly talking about kind of mental health struggles. And I'll probably touch on the first time it really happened with words, that other people have got in touch with me and said, that's exactly how I feel. Like, that is what I've been trying to tell my mum, or that's what I've been trying to tell my wife. And that in itself didn't only make me think, oh my goodness, like, that's amazing to know that somebody can take something positive from it, but also it just made me feel less alone. It's like, oh, so somebody knows what that feels like. Oh, somebody else. And so many people like have got in touch for quite a while. There was a girl from Germany who had somehow come across my music and sent me an email and said, oh, I found this to be really helpful, and I showed it to my therapist to explain, and we talked for a while. And then it was like, I just can't believe that dialogue, that conversation was ever able to be opened. And then went through actually a long phase where I didn't hear from them at all. And so I sent them just a quick, is everything all right? And that they got in touch and said, yeah, things have been much better than they have been for a long time, sort of thing. So it's amazing that it's been able to both reach somebody and make me see that I am not as isolated as it can very often feel.
I always feel like the best friend of any mental health is loneliness. When you're isolated with your own thoughts and you think no one else knows how I feel and no one else knows how bad it is, and you keep it, and then you go, like, once again, I've been there. I'm not going exactly what you've been through, but I've been through something similar. And you go, wow, now I've got an opportunity to talk to someone because this person kind of gets it and they've survived it.
Absolutely. And I think hopefully more and more people are opening that dialogue, and I think it is getting easier. Hopefully it's getting easier for the people that still maybe haven't said anything. There are more and more spaces to be able to do that. So I don't know, have you heard of Andy's Man Club?
Yes.
So that was something that I played a gig, and then the sound engineer said, well, this is something that we do in Exeter, and they gave me that. And there's been twice when I was about to go, but I became overwhelmed and found it was too much for me to do. And so I would then go through my own route. So I haven't ever been able to attend myself, but I've watched their growth and things like that. And it's just amazing to say, well, this is the record number of people that we've had this week. And that just means that's more people that are able to actually finally say something, who maybe haven't ever said it before. And knowing the weight that can lift off your shoulders when you know that just one other person that doesn't even necessarily have to understand it, but they've heard it, and it's not just your own cycle of thoughts. And one of which of mine is, nobody else wants to know this. You don't need to tell anybody because it will make them think that you're miserable, or it will make them think that you're not fun. And yeah, sorry, I go off on mad tangents at times, and I didn't know where I was going with that.
No, but it's right. It's that self-worth as well. A, will he care if I say this? B, if he does care, he's going to think less of me. And how many people I've had when they think, well, Kev, I didn't want to bother you. And I say, well, I'd much rather you interrupt my Sunday dinner with my girls than to have to buy a suit to go to your funeral. And I always say that if you've got someone in your life who continually answers the phone and is there for you, that's called love. Yeah. So if you are lucky enough to have someone, an old pal, a missus, a parent, a work colleague, a support group, whatever it is, it's not using them, it's being there for one another. That's called love. Absolutely.
And I've said that laughter is the best form of expression. Love is the other one. And that doesn't necessarily mean finding and falling in love and marrying, but a love for somebody, a family member, a dog, anything that feeling that you can get of walking through the door and a dog being happy to see you. That's love. That is like, and to feel wanted or appreciated or loved in any way is an amazing feeling. It really is. And yeah, it's a powerful feeling, but not necessarily everybody has easy access to that or feels that they are loved. But hopefully there's a way to tell everybody that they're loved.
I think it can also come with the pressure, can't it? Like, you probably found yourself having a son. I've got 3 kids myself, and I remember when they were born and you love them. But then you think, oh, I've got to provide for them. I've got to do, the pressure surrounding that love.
Absolutely. And everybody's like, isn't it the best thing? Isn't it amazing? And in all honesty, and I am starting to say this more now, I found the first year of his life to be one of the most difficult of mine. And I didn't feel that I was, people were like, oh, but you wouldn't change it for the world though. It's like, honestly, I am holding on for dear life. I was sobbing when there was nobody about, and really, really found it difficult, but also thought at the same time, I can't be like this. I can't show him this because this will affect him forever. And so, I mean, there haven't been times when he has experienced it, because luckily I'm now kind of, I'm back to finding the things that work for me. It's like one of the big things was when he was born, just before he was born, I was cycling 3 times a week. I was cycling up the biggest hill that we've got near us and then cycling down it, doing like off-road BMXing, mountain biking. And then when he came along, time completely changed, and what was important and this life that we had to look after was so precious that all other things stopped. Like, we had to keep gigging, we had to keep working because you have to keep making money, but anything that was helping me, one of them mountain biking, because it was gets my heart rate going. The other one, and it might sound kind of childish or silly to some people, but playing computer games was, that for me is the only time with my ADHD brain, it is the absolute only time where I am not thinking, or I'm only focused on that. If I watch a film, I'm thinking about something else, or how it's going to end, or if there's a twist, or if there's and it's this constant whirring. The only time when it switches off and doesn't kind of, other things don't just come in and take over, is when I'm sat playing a computer game. And I basically haven't really played at all since he was born, and so it's been finding new balances and new outlets and things like that, and it's a constantly changing thing. So as I said, I'm in a much better space than I was.
But it is isn't it? Like when you first have it, because we've watched sitcoms and movies, and I had that with my daughter. When I had my daughter, my wife had an emergency cesarean, and I expected to cry. I always think it was going to be like the Lion King when Mufasa lifts up Simba, and I just felt fear. I just felt, and then I'm holding this little shaven piglet, and I'm there going, and I swear my life to it because that's my daughter, and I'll die for it.
Yeah.
But I fell in love with my daughter. I didn't have that instant falling in love. I got to know her, and we bonded. And more elder, she got more. I fell in love with her, like a relationship, but I didn't have that instant lights on, and I felt terribly guilty about that.
Definitely, the guilt around that, because and you're the whole time that you're waiting to have a baby, like while Hannah was pregnant and stuff, everybody's like, you are going to love it. It is the best thing that you'll ever do. You will love it more, and like you've never loved anything else. And this is coming from parents. And then, yeah, I mean, I thought, I mean, truth be told, it's fine, because I've said this on stage, is in a similar way, Hannah had a C-section, and everything went out of the window. And then they dropped the curtain, but it was quite a stressful birth for him. And so he was very kind of squished up and purple and blue and things, and they dropped the curtain, and my first thought was, I can't put that in the family WhatsApp, like, oh my god. But then the next day I went to see him, and I was like, oh my god. And then that's when the madness kind of started happening of life. But I would totally agree that I felt this guilt that I didn't have this absolute instant adoration for this thing that was our duty now to care for. And I've cared for him more than I've ever cared for anything else in the world. And now I love him so much. He's still hard work. Like, it is hard. But I think, there's this idea that I'm the dad, I've got to be strong and things like that. But I'm hopefully going to teach him that is not the case. Don't always feel like you've got to be strong. It's absolutely 100% okay to cry. And
strength comes in many different forms as well. People think to be strong, I've got to be a boxer or I've got to be a weightlifter. And strength is being able to manage your own emotions. And for someone who's had many mental health problems and many problems, what it's taught me is how to be resilient. And that's a strength in itself, knowing, you know what, today I'm not in a good place. I'm going to lie on the settee, I'm going to lick my wounds, but the wave will pass. And tomorrow I'll have the strength to go again. And sometimes it's learning when to stand up and when to sit down. And when we get those two mixed up, I end up falling over. So sometimes just thinking, take a knee, get your breath back, then stand up. And you learn this through maturity and through experience, don't you?
Yeah, that's it's really interesting. 2 days ago, I had therapy. I've just started seeing a new therapist. I've had a therapist for 7 years, and I've started seeing somebody new because I didn't feel like nothing was changing really, or I was just saying the same thing over and over. And this new person has made me see things totally differently with 2 sessions in. And one of the things that I'm actually been talking to is that I have an absolute sickening guilt if I'm not doing something. And that's changed even more since we've had Sully, because time is so precious. If I have an hour off, I feel like I have to be writing a song, or I've got to empty the dishwasher, I've got to go and clean my van, I've got to do something, because if I don't do anything, I haven't achieved it. And what she was talking to me about is sometimes you need to recharge yourself, and I'm learning and really trying to do that. But I would find it difficult to say, I sat down for 3 hours today and didn't do anything. But I'm realizing that is something I'm going to need to do sometimes.
A therapist once explained that to me. And he said, there's being busy and there's being constructive. There's being busy and being constructive. And like when you're doing your GCSEs, you read it, but it doesn't go in. Sometimes read it, go for a walk, sit down, play a computer game, then come back, read it again. That's being constructive, because I've allowed myself to recover. Now I read it, boom, got it. But sometimes I read it until I just go foggy and blind.
Yeah. And you find yourself reading the same page over and over again. You're like, I don't even know what's just gone in. I don't know what I've just read, so I've got to start it again. It's a really good way of looking at it, with just taking, it's like mind breaks, isn't it? I think that's what they do with revision now. What they suggest is mind breaks.
But you have it with athletes, and they go, I train 7 days. You need a day to do sod all. Let your muscles recover. And it's the same in anything. Have that. But once again, the guilt. Well, if I'm not doing this, I'm wasting my time. But we need the sleep so I can function.
Yeah.
That's why we go to sleep at night, so my body can recover. And sometimes I need active rest, i.e. computers, music, movies, whatever your medicine is. And our medicine changes for each person.
Something that just stops your mind, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or puts your mind in a place where you have to concentrate on just that thing.
Yeah.
Which is probably what gaming is to you.
Yeah, exactly that. Not because I know no other random thoughts are going to come in and cause worry, because I haven't got time for that. I've got to use my hands, and I've got to think about the story that's happening, and I've got to jump and hit the man on the head or something like that. But yeah.
So was this, you said like therapy for 7 years. So is this ongoing? Has this been an ongoing thing since, how old are you, Sam?
I've just turned 39.
So 39. So this has been going on, say, since your 30s, or has it been a lifelong battle?
It's actually started when I was 20. It started with what was, and I've always put it down to this, I'd met somebody when I was in Birmingham University, and kind of it was my first experience of like romantic love, of falling in love. And I would often say 19 was like is my peak. Like I was untouchable. I was confident. I had like this whole new experience. And then 20 came, and it was shortly after my 20th birthday. That same person, we had quite a very sudden breakup where she was unfaithful, and I started to get past that because I couldn't think of any other way of life was so good. I can't go any direction now. I have to try and hold on to this thing. Then it transpired that she was pregnant, and she didn't know if it was my child or the child of my friend at the time, or an old friend. And that, I think my world just flipped. And because it was this permanent fixture of something, I didn't know which path I was about to take. I didn't know anything, and trust disappeared. And I think that was my first experience of real breaking. And I drank a lot through the next few years, and just searched, craved, desperately looked for any form of happiness, which I now see was probably dopamine that I was looking for, because I needed to experience joy. And so I was finding any possible way that I could. And then I just never recovered, really. So I look at that, and this is what I would tell my therapist, is that I was a vase, and then the vase got dropped, and I put the vase back together, but there's cracks in it now, and there's bits still missing, something. And that's kind of how I've always seen it. And then one of the things that she said is that I believe it's in China, they paint over the cracks with gold to make it a new thing. And that was like a really changing moment for me, of like, yes, there are cracks, but you can paint over them, and you can. And so I guess me taking what was a new sadness that I didn't know how to cope with, and a depression and anxiety, that I then, my painting the cracks was turning that into a song, and kind of making that song like help me do shows and things like that.
But it's those bits that make you beautiful, isn't it? When you look at people, and I've never met an interesting person who hasn't been through trauma. You know, that's the beauty of the story. You can't go, well, I went to school and everything worked out well. You go, what a terrible story. You want to do that at the cinema? Everyone loves I lost and he knocked me down, and then my cat got run over, and then everybody's, yeah, because, and I say this to the boxers downstairs, I went, I don't know your lives, but you've all been through terrible stuff, but you're still here. How do I know? Because you're still here. We survive all the bad stuff, and that just gives us scars, but it shows us I can survive it. And I think what we've got to do with people is all this trauma, all this thing, put in a rucksack and put it in the garden shed, so I know where it is. Don't carry it, because when I carry it, it exhausts me. But I'll put it somewhere where I can always go and have a look and see, oh, bloody hell, that was terrible, but I'm going to leave it there.
Yeah. No, that's a good way of looking at it. Like that, you know that it's never going to go, it's never going to disappear. But if you can detach yourself from it, not like blocking it out or anything like that, because I think that's quite often what seems like a good route is just block it out completely, squash it down, and don't think about it. But I think it's through sharing experience and actually facing horrible shit is the only way of dealing with stuff, I think, a lot of the time. And so it's good to be able to know that you can step away from it at times, and and that you might have a good few weeks, and you actually start to think, oh, things have been good. And I used to sometimes think, maybe I'm fixed, maybe this is it, I've done it. But it's taken years and years and years to realize that the depression, the anxiety, it is always there. Sometimes it will go away for a few weeks, sometimes it will be there very, very strong, and sometimes it will show up with absolutely no reason. And just to go back to once more, sorry, to bounce back, when I thought that it all started with this breakup, it's now transpired after 38 years of trying to find out why I am the way that I am and why I have such a horrible experience of my own mental health, which I'm happy to kind of try and explain. I've always known that I've had ADHD. I'm scatty. I forget what I'm doing. I walk into rooms and have no idea what I'm there for. And I just thought that's what it was. And it wasn't until I was having a conversation with somebody and they said, their partner had just been diagnosed with ADHD and prescribed the medication for it. And they'd phoned him up that day and they said, I just wanted to check everything was all right, that you've just taken the pills and stuff like that. And they went, yeah, it's gone much better than I thought. I'm thinking clearly. And I didn't think I would be able to do what I was doing, like my work, but I can still do it. He goes, but the weirdest thing is that weird sense of like that anxiety that I've told you about, that's always there. It's gone. And I literally burst into tears at the concept that could not be there. And so that is what sought me to get my diagnosis. And I'm now on the waiting list for trying new medication, which I might be putting all my eggs into one basket, because I think that this could actually be the thing that I've been searching for so long. And I know that there's a 50-50 chance it might work, it might not. But I think even having that to hold on to, like, even if they said, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And if that light goes out, I will find a new light. I will find something else to bring me hope. And
I heard that would never take away a man's hope, because, and I say this to the lads downstairs, when sometimes you think hope is dead, just remind yourself it's just hibernating. It could just take the smallest of embers to light the biggest of fires. And that's all it takes, that little glimmer, that little ember. And it's never quite dead. It's just tiny. And it's just sleeping. And when it's ready, it'll get bigger and bigger. And boom, you're back in the room.
Absolutely. Hope is that can be number 3. Love, laughter, and hope. The
and
3
kindness.
things to survive life.
And kindness and love, the same things. And
yeah, absolutely.
And sometimes with relationships, and when we're single, we're looking, we go, why does no one want me? Why does no one want me? You go, well, would you want to be with you right now?
Yeah.
Be the best you that you can be. And if you are struggling with anxiety or depression or whatever it is, your demon, it's up to you to try and find solutions to get around it by self-love, by seeing a therapist, by exercising, whatever it is. But it's up to you to work on yourself. And more I work on myself, more desirable you become. Not just as in a relationship, where it's a friendship, it's an employee, but we should always be working on ourselves in some way or another.
Absolutely. And I don't think there's ever one thing either. I don't think that you could be like, I found this and this really works. I'm finding that it's so many aspects of life that I have to do a particular way in order to stay as afloat as I can, sort of thing. And there are times, I wrote a new song recently, which is in the last 10 years, when the whole time, it is the most honest I've ever been in a song. And I was even scared to show it to the people I'm closest to, because it was saying things that I think maybe they didn't even know about me and about how I can feel. And even though I'm trying all of these things, I'm seeing a therapist, I'm eating better, I'm getting out on my bike, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and I'm staying busy, I'm not wasting time, I could still find myself unable to find any joy or hope. Like with all of the things that have worked at times, there have been moments when even that I haven't been able to find any hope. And I know that can be really, really difficult for the people closest to me. But I also know without them, I wouldn't have made it. I think it is good to be more desirable if you're a happy-go-lucky person, but we can't always be that. And so what I've found an absolute true love to be is sticking with somebody when they are at that absolute pit and just holding them, picking them up. And I've said that to people before, that sometimes there's no answer, there's no solution, there's nothing that you can say, but just please, just would you sit with me? Just sit with me. That's all I need, is just somebody to know I just not be on my own. And so I think there's so much pressure to be the best version of yourself, and it is up to us to try and fight these demons and do that. But there are times when you've run out of all of the energy, sort of thing, and it's then that you hope that somebody is there to say, I've got your back. I've got your back. And
well, someone said to me about toxic positivity, and that is like, my mom's dead. Well, that's great, and now your legs fell off. Well, I've always got another one.
Oh yeah,
you've got to allow yourself to feel it, but don't drown in it.
Yes, that's a real fair point. Like, absolutely, you have to experience, as I said before, like, you have to deal with something, you have to face it. You can't squash it to one side and like brush it off, and hopefully you can find somewhere where that is okay to do, because you can feel the guilt of speaking to the same person too much. But places, podcasts that you can listen to make you feel not alone. But also, I mean, I've found the Samaritans multiple times when I've been at a point where I didn't want to put that burden on my family anymore, because I thought it was too much for them to handle. So I would speak to a complete stranger, and again, they have given me a space just to talk. They haven't given me a solution. They haven't said, "Boy, you should go and try this now." They've just listened, and it's enough to just make the world a little bit lighter, just a little bit lighter, where you can breathe again and just feel that you can make it till the next day.
And I think there is a good point to turning things into a positive, but it's the kind of the way you do it. It's not the way Kev did it, explained it there. That's a fake positivity, isn't it? Your mum's died. You're going to feel emotion, but actually down the road, like for you, that could lead to a song, which then turns it into a positive.
Yeah.
There's ways of being positively positive, isn't there? And there's ways of just actually, I'm going to fake this out, trying to be positive.
Yeah, just smiling through it and being like, yeah, because that's what people expect of you, sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, it is easy to do that. Maybe just when you're walking into work and you see like, "Oh, good morning, Tony. Yeah, all good," when actually you're not. But then hopefully you'll speak to your person that will like, "Yeah, no, things aren't great at home. This has been difficult recently," and it's just to have somewhere to say it. What I was told by my therapist yesterday is say it out loud in a room on your own, and it's out. And it's something yesterday, this morning, in fact, I put my arms out and I went, like I made loud noises to see if that worked. And so I'm trying like random shit, but I'm sure some of it's going to actually have an impact and some of it will work. I clench my fists a lot when I get really anxious. And she said, be open, put your hands out, and that's holding something in, that's letting something go. And so that's something I'm starting to try and like work on, something like I work on dealing with something in a totally different way than I've been dealing with it in the last 20 years.
Have you ever done a gratitude list, Sam?
Is that the things that like you're thankful for?
It could just be a good. It hasn't got to be great. It's just something from every day. Start by writing 5 things that you're happy about. The baby fell asleep before the podcast, or the sun come out, or it hasn't even got to be I found a £5. It's just I've had a nice day.
Yeah.
And I've done so much therapy over the years, and sometimes when I just talk about my problems, it might be I'm reliving it all the time. And sometimes I think, like this is what Emily Barney does up here from Spartan Brain Gym, great woman on the podcast, and she just reminds us of the things that are good in our life. And that's something I try and do with my daughter, just remind ourselves, well, life ain't perfect, but there are good things. And trying to attack my mind and my subconscious to, it could always be bloody worse. And sometimes that just helps me get through it. It's not ideal, but it could be worse.
Yeah, I've got that thing like that. So there's a song called "Little Things." It's quite an old song now, but that is about just finding little positives. When you've made do you ever get a moment where you've made yourself a cup of tea, but you've forgotten that you've made that tea, and then all of a sudden this tea pops up in front of you and it's the perfect temperature? I'm like, that to me is an absolute winner, because I've got perfect, not too hot cup of tea right in front of me. And yeah, so little things, I guess, is a gratitude list of just lying on the grass, staring at the sky, anytime that I'm reminded that I'm still alive, is kind of from that song.
But sometimes get your pen and put it to a paper. Get yourself a little notepad.
Yeah.
And just try it out over next week or fortnight. Start the day with what was good yesterday. And sometimes you go, well, it was a crap day. And sometimes you have to really struggle to write 5. But you make sure you do 5, and then next day it gets a bit easier. And sometimes you write 10. The next day, But it's just some days are better than others. But try purposely to think of 5 good things from the day before.
So would that be like in the morning? Because I've just written it down. I have to write stuff down, otherwise I forget it immediately. So I've just written down gratitude list. Do you do it in the morning of the day before, or the end of the day looking back, or does it really matter, or you just do it kind of?
It doesn't matter. Does it? If you need regiment in your life, I have to do it at 8:15.
Yeah,
that's your medicine. But as long as you can do it every day and go, flipping heck, I forgot to do it. But have it part of your diet that every day I'm going to just write at least 5 things down.
True. And I guess what I'd say on that, which I don't know if can link to other people, is if you do forget to do it, or if you haven't done something, I'm very quick to be like, you fucking idiot, like be really, really annoyed at myself for forgetting to do something, writing a positive list of 5 things, and I'd be like, oh, you didn't do it, you twat. And so I think we can be our worst like critics, and we can be most vile to ourselves.
Talk to yourself as if you're your friend. Because I'll tell you something, if someone else talked to me the way I did, I'd knock them out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And sometimes realise that yourself going, why would you talk to someone like this?
Yeah.
I've made a mistake. I haven't done my gratitude list. I spilt the coffee. I haven't done this deliberately. I haven't vandalised my own house, thrown coffee everywhere. No. I haven't. So just go, it was an accident. Let's move on from it.
And realise it's not worth putting yourself in a bad mood.
No, exactly that. Like, and it can do that sort of thing. It's really weird that this is what we're talking about, because 3-4 days ago, I wrote a song called How Dare You? And it's about overhearing a conversation between 2 people and being like, you do not speak to somebody like that. You're an absolute like arsehole to speak to somebody like that. And then it transpires that the person is me talking to myself. And if I ever heard, as literally what you said, if I ever heard myself talking to somebody, you know what I mean? Like if somebody talked to me the way I talk to myself, they would like face quite a serious backlash. And we definitely can be. So it's just interesting that's the last song I wrote, called How Dare You?
And on about your songs, because you're touring soon, aren't you?
Yes, it's announced yesterday. It's the biggest tour I've been part of, and it's like a double headline tour with 2 loop pedal artists, so myself, Samantics, and Funky and the Two-Tone Baby, who's a friend of mine called Dan. And we both have quite a similar setup of loop instruments. And I mean, he's got a guitar because he's better at instruments than I am. I've only got a ukulele because I can't play guitar properly. But although we've got like a very similar setup, we deliver the most different sounds. Like he's very, very kind of upbeat, lively, gets people dancing and moving, and I basically just make people feel like shit. That's my USP. But we're kind of doing this massive tour together. It's called the Chaos Tour because we've both got something called a Chaos Pad as part of our equipment, and we're going to like Scotland and Wales, and it's definitely the biggest thing I've ever been part of. It's 21 dates, I believe, all around the country, and it's going to be so it's starting in November. Tickets will go on sale on Thursday, but from Wednesday through to Saturday, so that'll be 4 days a week that I'll be on the road, and I'm never really away that much. I maybe do 2 nights away gigging or something like that, and I've always been okay with that. And in the past it's been a bit longer, but never 4 nights every week have I done that. And we've got this little boy, and I'm like, this is going to be over half of his life, like 4 days out of his week I'm not going to be there. And that's really like already playing with like my thoughts and how am I going to cope and things like that. And so it comes with it, this amazing opportunity, and what will be superb and like so much fun to do. It does already have, it's not happening for another 2 or 3 months. It's already got this like element of like, oh, how am I going to cope with that? How am I going to cope with that? And that kind of sums up my internal dialogue, like this incredible thing that I get to do and call a job. I add these pressures to it. What I'm going to do? How I'm not going to be able to cope with this. But it's all going to be kind of part of a learning curve, and I'm sure it'll be absolutely amazing. But it's just like on the subject of like active thoughts and mental health, like it's so easy to find a negative of something, and actually it's a very, very positive thing.
What as you said, like that, the part conflict, I want to do it but I can't do it. That's what a lot of mental health turmoil is. And what you're doing then, well, I'm going to go away but I won't see him, and then how about if I don't see him, and how about if he hates me, and how about, but our brain doesn't realize that that's not real. But our brain is going through like 100 negative experiences that aren't actually real.
Yeah,
that's where anxiety lives.
Yeah.
So if you have got the power to, I go, well, I'm not going to see him, but I have got a video phone, and I will make sure he sees Daddy's face every day. And everybody forgets my voice. Well, I'll send him a voice note on WhatsApp. And it's, but just try it as you're going down the rabbit hole. It's bloody easy. It's said than done.
Yeah.
But when you are going down a rabbit hole, go and stop, press pause on the record. Let's try and change something here. And that's what the gratitude list has helped me do.
Right. Okay. That's great.
By reminding myself of, well, how about we've got bloody telephones. It's not like back in the 90s or the 80s. I can literally go, Bab, hello, it's Daddy.
Yeah.
And I'll sing him a song every day, or every night I'll sing him a song before he goes to bed, or I can do that.
Yeah,
and if
that is amazing.
At 7:00, I'll send him a voice note and go, my wife, can you press play?
Press play on that, yeah.
There's solutions. But when we're in the clouds of despair and hate and turmoil, it's like a pub fight, glasses and ashtrays are going everywhere. But 9 times it's not that aggressive, so just pause and find a solution. Because when we're calm, we can find solutions. So even do that on your gratitude book or list. Start writing solutions down, mind to pen to paper, of course yourself, sod. That's what I'll do.
Yeah, do it that way. Absolutely. And it's even thinking about that, how lucky we are to be able to just have a person up on a screen and be like, oh, hello, I'm still here, that sort of thing, which wouldn't have been the case like years and years ago. But I think also with that, this sense of being so connected, we are all so connected, social media and everything is connected. And yet it sometimes, because we're so connected, you can almost sometimes feel more isolated, if that makes sense, of like you have access to speak to everybody straight away, but yet I'm not doing that, or I'm not able to do that for various reasons. And seeing so many other people share positive things. One slight issue I sometimes have is if I'm sharing things on social media, I won't just post the good stuff. I won't be like, oh, I had an amazing day today, and the next day when I didn't have a great day, I don't say anything. I'll be like, today was hard work, but I'm still here, and kind of, and there is, I think it's quite easy sometimes to only want to share the good stuff because you want to both send positivity, but also some people don't want other people to know that they don't have the perfect life or something like that. And so and if you're looking at a lot of people who are showing the best bits, that can feel isolating because you think, oh my God, my life is wank compared to like what they get to do. But you don't see when that camera's off, you don't see what they're up to, you don't see if they're still smiling, and you know, life is hard. That's something I've discovered. It is hard. And I think everybody has to find it hard in a particular way at a particular time. And I think it's important to show those vulnerabilities when they happen, because otherwise it's not realistic.
Well, that's why me and Lee, one of the reasons, well, Lee started it, wasn't it? For that reason, was to show your lad.
Yeah, to show my lad that it was fine to talk, and in truth, at the time, I couldn't talk to him. You know what I mean? That was too hard. But actually, talking to everyone else who don't know you is actually easier. But I just wanted to show really that if you are struggling, just talk to something, do something, help yourself.
Amazing, Lee. That's what a dad move. That is brilliant. To like, yeah, to go into the most, like, anybody can listen to you now sort of thing and hear exactly what you're saying and show that it is literally okay. And if finding a way, you know, you might not be able to speak to me, but you can speak to such and such, or it's okay to speak. I think that's a really cool move as a dad.
Well, that's it. And I think from myself, you don't want to, I'd absolutely hate to think my son had the experiences that I had, all because I didn't talk.
Yeah.
You
know, you bottled it up, so that's what.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. So that's what he learned to do, and in truth, that's probably what I learned to do from my dad.
Yeah,
you do. You follow the path that's kind of already been set for you. There's not many people who break away from what their parents have taught them. So yeah, I just needed to show him that actually you're fine. Go out there and talk. And I think I showed my dad that as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you feel has he ever opened up to you kind of at an older age and said?
My dad, not to me so much, but he sought help after.
That's brilliant.
And again, that's fine. I couldn't care who he talks to be honest. Whether it's me, whether it's you, whether it's the dog. It doesn't. Yeah. It's the fact that he's actually opened up and sought help.
To know that they're saying something, even if it's not to you, it's just, you'll know that that's a weight off somebody's shoulders, because hopefully it is. It's what it feels like to me. Yeah. So.
Well, Sam, thank you ever so much, brother, for coming on.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me on. I hope I tend to waffle at times, so I hope I haven't waffled on too much.
No, it's been a pleasure, brother. Before you go, two things.
Yes.
I know it's scrolling on the screen right now, but everyone who's listening to us on a podcast obviously can't see that. Where can everyone find your music and all about you?
Cool. So all of basically the hub for everything is my website, and that is www. Do you still have to say www? I don't know. It is samantics.co.uk. So that is samantics.co.uk. And so that's got links to all of my social media, my TikTok, which is very different to my live show. It's just me doing random shit songs, weird songs. It's got all my albums and things like that. And this isn't another tool plug, but there's something I feel that I always want to say, but I never know like the right time to say it. Is I think you can listen to me on Spotify, and all the words are the words to the songs, but I don't feel that it portrays what I get out of a live gig. Like, performing live is my absolute passion. It is like no other feeling that I get. It is amazing. Whether there's one person or 3,000 people in a tent, like I thrive off being able to express these things. It's not just saying the words, it is kind of exploding into a ball of madness. And so if you do listen and you think, oh, words are all right, not sure about the beat or anything like that, do try it out and come along, because it's just, yeah, I've never been able to, I'm not really selling the albums very well. I'm not very good at that, to be fair. I've never been able to get a live vibe onto a CD. I think my most recent album is the closest I've come, but there's just something about it. And I think I touched on it really early on before. You know that's like a one-off thing that's going to happen only once. And if you mess it up, if I got the words wrong, that's all right. And I'm not going to beat myself up about that anymore. With a recording, it's got to kind of be perfect and like exactly as you want it to sound, sort of thing. So they're two very, very different things. My Spotify page and my live stage are two opposite ends of the scale, but it's all there. It's all there to look at. And hopefully it might just, somebody might hear a song and be like, oh, that's good to hear that somebody else felt like that before. So yeah.
And before you go, have you got any quotes or sayings that have helped you get through life?
Wow. So my brain is going to run at 1,000,000 miles an hour. and then I'll probably think of something just as I leave. And I don't want to quote myself because that's really wanky.
Quote yourself.
Shit, now I'm going to have to try and quote my own lyrics and I don't know them. I wish I'm so bad at remembering my own lyrics. I think What's Life Without Hope is off a song that I don't really play that much. And it's, what is life without hope? And I think hopefully that is just a reminder to look for something hopeful if you can. It's not the best one, but I don't think very quickly on my feet. So,
well, that's been brilliant, brother. Thank you for coming on. And
thank you very much for having me.
And thank you.
And when I do think of the right saying, I'll probably post it and be like, guys, this is it. I'll think of one later. But no, thank you so much for having me on and for kind of letting me share my story and to hear your stories. And so thank you very much.
And thank you to you guys for listening. So until we see each other next time, I want you all to take care of yourselves and each other.
Listen.
And that's a wrap for another show. But if there are any comments or messages that you would like us to read out for our next podcast, please be in touch. There are also lots of different organisations at the bottom of this page, and hopefully they can help you or someone you care about. Please share this to spread the word. Until we talk next time, ta-ra a bit.